All right, let's trace the family tree of pretty much all modern music. We're going to uncover the secret history behind some of your favorite songs, and it all goes back to one place.
So, if you think rock and roll started with screaming fans and electric guitars, well, you're only getting half the story. The real beginning is a much, much deeper tale that goes back over 100 years.
Yep, to really find the roots of rock, we've got to jump in a time machine and listen for a sound that was born from both hardship and hope. We're talking about the very first notes of the blues.
Okay, so our journey starts with these incredible musical traditions that made their way across the Atlantic Ocean all the way from West Africa.
So you got to understand, enslaved people brought this incredibly rich musical DNA with them. Think about it, work songs and field hollers, they weren't just to make the day go by faster. No way. They were a lifeline, a way to talk to each other, to build a community. And things like spirituals and gospel hymns, that was all about expressing hope even in the toughest of times. This was music that mattered.
One of the key pieces of this puzzle is something called call and response. It's exactly what it sounds like, kind of like a musical conversation. A leader sings a line and then the whole group answers back. This super simple back and forth was huge for creating a sense of community and sticking together, you know?
And here's another secret ingredient: blue notes. So what are those? Well, imagine the keys on a piano. Blue notes are the pitches that live in between those standard notes. They're what give the blues that one-of-a-kind, soulful, almost bittersweet feeling that's so powerful.
All right, section 2, the 12-bar blueprint. So as this amazing new music started to take shape, it naturally fell into a common structure. You can think of it like a recipe or a blueprint that musicians everywhere could learn and use. And that blueprint is called the 12-bar blues. It's this standard pattern, a really simple but solid framework that became, well, the backbone of the blues. And once you know what to listen for, you'll hear it in tons of songs. Not just blues, but a whole lot of early rock and roll, too.
The lyrics had a pattern too, this AAB thing. It's super straightforward. First, you state your problem. Then, you say it again, for emphasis. And finally, you wrap it up with a conclusion or a final thought. This structure made it perfect for making up stories and lyrics right on the spot.
And here's the musical map for those 12 bars, the I-4-5 chord progression. Now, you don't have to be a music theory genius to get this. Just know that these chords follow a specific path. It builds up a little tension, and then it brings you back home. It's this really satisfying journey that's predictable enough for everyone to follow, but it also leaves tons of room for creativity, which is perfect for solos.
Okay, part 3, Delta Blues goes electric. So we've got the structure, we've got the feel, but how did the blues get, well, loud? This next part of the story is all about a huge migration of people and a piece of tech that changed everything. So you had two main flavors of blues. The first was Delta Blues, from the rural Mississippi Delta. It was super raw, personal, just one person with an acoustic guitar. But then you have Chicago Blues. When musicians moved to bustling, noisy cities like Chicago, they had to get louder just to be heard over the crowd.
And this all happened during a major historical event called the Great Migration. In the early 1900s, millions of African Americans moved from the South to northern cities. To compete with the noise in these new, loud city clubs, they did something revolutionary. They plugged in. They electrified their sound, and that acoustic solo act, it became a loud, aggressive, full-band powerhouse.
Part 4, the rock and roll beat. So the stage is totally set for a musical explosion, right? The blues moved to the city, it got electrified, and now it was about to get a whole new rhythm.
And you have to understand, the electric guitar wasn't just a louder acoustic. No, it was a whole different animal. It went from being a background instrument just keeping rhythm to being the absolute star of the show, front and center.
All of a sudden, guitar players could make these sounds that nobody had ever even imagined before. We're talking about distortion, feedback, long wailing solos. Guys like T-Bone Walker, they proved that this new instrument could be just as expressive, just as emotional as a human voice.
Okay, now let's add the final, crucial ingredient, the beat, specifically the backbeat. Instead of just a steady 1, 2, 3, 4, the drummer starts hitting the second and fourth beats extra hard. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hear that? That's the pulse of rock and roll. It's what makes you want to get up and dance.
And here are some of the absolute architects of this new sound. You've got Chuck Berry, who took that blues guitar and wrote lyrics about things teenagers cared about, like cars and school. Then there's Bo Diddley, who brought in this wild, syncopated rhythm. And of course, Little Richard, with his insane, high-energy piano playing. These guys took that electrified blues blueprint, cranked up the speed, and aimed it right at a new generation.
All right, our last section, the blues' lasting legacy. Because this story definitely doesn't stop in the 1950s. The musical DNA of the blues went global, and man, it just keeps evolving.
And here's a wild twist. In the 1960s, you had this British blues explosion. Bands in the UK, like the Rolling Stones, were absolutely obsessed with American blues. And ironically, they got so popular that they ended up reintroducing this music to a whole new generation of kids back in America. From there, the blues framework became the foundation for hard rock, heavy metal, you name it.
So really, the main thing to get here is that the blues took the experience of real suffering and turned it into a global art form. It gave a voice to people who are facing unbelievable hardship and transformed those personal stories into something that everyone, everywhere, could feel.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Without the blues, the entire history of popular music would sound completely different. Every time you hear a guitarist rip a killer solo or a singer just pours their soul into a song, they are tapping right back into this incredible family tree, a tree with its roots deep, deep in the blues.
So yeah, the blues turned hardship into art. And that whole story just goes to show you that music is always changing, always evolving. And it's so often born from our most powerful human experiences. It really makes you wonder, right? What's going to be the thing that inspires the next great sound?